Welcome back to the Chicago Lead, everybody. Brooke Fletcher here. That's Joshua Perry, and that is David Haugh. Guys, let's talk the Bears here because some big moves happened over the weekend here. ESPN's 𝗦cie 𝗰𝗶𝗟 reported today that the Bears are expected to sign Ryan Poles to an extension that would align with Ben Johnson's 5-year deal. Curious your thoughts.
I understand it. Everybody wants symmetry in the NFL, but I don't necessarily think it is earned. I mean, they lost a lot of games in the last 3 years. Yep. But once you make a decision to keep him, to allow him to be part of the process where you hire Ben Johnson, Joshua, I don't think you can fire him because you want continuity. And whether he deserves it or not, that's a debate that, frankly, has already been had. And I don't know that he did. But you don't want to create more conflict and unrest. So you've got to align them. And I understand this is part of the game.
Listen, I'm kind of at the standpoint of, if one of them goes, I think they both have to go at this point. And I think when the news cycle starts, it needs to be on the same timeline, too. We talked about this last time I was here, but one of the biggest issues with the Bears as an organization, to me, is the fact that the quarterback and the head coach and the GM, they're all kind of just, pieced together. There's never really a common thread. And it's a tough way to operate as an organization. So to your point, 5-year extension, I don't know if I feel great about it, but I understand the thought process here in terms of organizational alignment.
As you guys were talking about culture with the Blackhawks, I think that's important with the Bears here. You're bringing in a new head coach and you're signing him to that extension. But, how would you just assess, given the draft picks, the moves, the hires, how would you assess the first 3 years of Ryan Poles?
Well, disappointing, extremely disappointing because they lost a lot of games, 36 games, I believe, and also he hired Mandy Eberflus, then he retained him. But we've got to get past that, and the Bears certainly have. So whether we like it or not, it doesn't really do any good to relitigate the past. What you've got to do, Joshua, you're exactly right. You need to align these guys. If Ben Johnson has a 5-year contract, which was another nugget in the 𝗦cie 𝗰𝗶𝗟 piece, then Ryan Poles has to feel comfortable that he's going to be here just as long. They have to be in lockstep philosophically. I do think this. Ryan Poles maybe has made some poor decisions, made some good decisions too. A really excellent trade, a couple of good deals. He's smarter sitting next to Ben Johnson.
I agree.
Because Ben Johnson's ability to evaluate talent, he knows what he wants. Them able to work together in concert is a good thing.
I'm with you. Hiring Ben Johnson builds the confidence back up. The idea that now you've paired him with Caleb, so Caleb will become his full self, gives you confidence here. So it seems like the further we get into this, the more confident we get. Draft has to be good. They have to make the right picks when it comes to the draft, but it's starting to swing. The pendulum's starting to swing the other way.
And Ryan Poles, young executives can improve the way they do their jobs, and he's still a very young executive.
All right, I'm curious how good you think these moves are that was happened over the last few days here. First, the Bears brought in Bieniemy to be the new running backs coach. Now reports are saying that Roushar is coming in as the O-line coach. So let's start with Bieniemy here. Take a look at his resume there. It goes on, and there's a lot of good things that are said about him. There's some reports that says maybe he's a little bit of a hothead, but what do you think he brings to the Bears, David?
I think a couple of Super Bowls ago, he was the hottest head coaching candidate out there, or one of them, interviewed, I think, as many as 17 times for head coaching positions. So a perennial candidate. I think this is a good addition to a Bears staff where he's just going to be asked to hold his running back room accountable. He'll do that. Is he a tough guy? Does he talk loudly? Does he challenge players? Yes, yes, and yes. Good. That's what they need.
I agree with you. I think they need somebody like that in that building. We talked about culture when it came to the Blackhawks. This is another culture piece. A guy who is going to push, bit of a hard driver, sometimes rubs players the wrong way, but you get the most out of guys when you end up doing that. The flip side of this is for Bieniemy. He was with Andy Reid when he was with the Chiefs. Everybody's like, oh, here's this next hot guy. Wasn't really calling the plays, maybe exposed himself a little bit as he got onto the next couple steps. Being on staff with Ben Johnson, the rest of those guys that he has there, he's going to become a better coach. So I think the players get better by him being there, and I think he becomes a better coach too. This is actually a really good marriage.
That's a good point.
And we'll see how it impacts DeAndre Swift and that backfield there. All right, on the offensive line, it looks like Roushar, he's going to be coming in from Tulane here. He has experience with the Saints. He was an assistant from 2013 to 2022 here. So do you think he's up for the task when it comes to this
No doubt about it. Vast experience, good background, also a good teacher, respected throughout the league, respected in college football.
Yes.
Spent some time at Illinois, at Northern, at Ball State too. So this is a guy that comes to the Bears well-traveled, but also ready for the job. Not going to be overwhelmed by anything, not going to be intimidated by the fact that you only have one real starter returning in Darnell Wright. So this is a good hire.
The other thing about it, too, is the NFL is not known as a developmental league, but when you get a guy who spent so much time in college football, it's in his DNA to develop. These guys need work.
Yeah.
The guys in that offensive line room need to develop. They need to become better players. So having somebody with that background and that mentality is only a positive to me.
All right, well, Bieniemy and Roushar, the latest additions to this coaching staff. So let's take it back here and take a look at a whole. Ben Johnson's new staff here. Take a look. David, what do you think?
This is a good staff. I like this staff because of one other reason, too. Ben Johnson is not afraid to hire guys who want to be head coaches and who are good enough, maybe schematically, to become head coaches and hot candidates. Too often you see coaches afraid to hire guys who might replace them. There is no insecurity in Ben Johnson, and that staff reflects that.
I totally agree with that. And it's not even just guys who want to be head coaches, but you got position coaches there who are going to want to be coordinators coming up here pretty shortly, too. He's got a bunch of hungry guys there.
Yeah, he's got a mixture of veteran coaches, young staff, and so I think it's a really good mix here. But David, we've talked about it for a while, but now it's time to evaluate. Give me your top 5.
All right. The Bears power rankings for assistant coaches. Dennis Allen, number 1, because he's got a big job. He is head coach / defense. He's got to take over a defense that's very good talent-wise. He's got to get them to be aggressive and get to the quarterback. Number 2, Dan Roushar, the guy we just talked about for obvious reasons. This is the biggest challenge because it's the most important position group. You've got to build from the ball on out. You've got to replace 4 different positions, and I think he's up for the job because I think he's that important. Number 3, Antwaan Randall 𝗟𝗏, just because I love watching him play college football. I love seeing him coach. He was great with the Steelers. He's a local guy. He also was not afraid to get in the face of receivers who may run a foul, so I like his accountability factor.
Yep.
He's number 3. Al Harris, respected, accomplished, former Packer, yes. Don't hold that against him, Chicago. This guy's going to get the most out of Tyreek Stevenson and Jalen Johnson and company. Al Harris, number 4. And 5, Eric Bieniemy, because he's not afraid to get in your face. And I think sometimes every staff needs that guy.
I'm with you. Antwaan Randall 𝗟𝗏 is another one for me. You mentioned his relationship with the players. I think he's comfortable getting on guys like that because he was one of those guys. He knows exactly what it feels like there. But you left my boy, 𝗏𝗏 𝗏𝗏 off the list.
I know.
What are we doing?
I know. When I saw I did that and I realized I'd be standing next to you, I'm a little intimidated. I'm not going to lie. But I think 𝗏𝗏 𝗏𝗏 is 6 or 5A.
Okay. All right.
Okay, well, how concerned, I know Declan Doyle, he's new when it comes to his position here, but how concerned should I be, David, that he's not on your top 5 list?
That's a really good question, but I think that underscores just, not that he's unimportant, but I think it's better for him than it is for the Bears. He's going to bring some stability here. He's going to work around the clock. He's going to make Ben Johnson smarter on Sundays, but I just don't know if he's as necessary as some of these guys, because I don't know if Ben Johnson needs him as much as the position players need these guys to come through, and that's why.
It's a good point. He's the guy who has to make sure everything's organized, right? Like, he has to get Ben Johnson's thoughts into a place where it can become a cohesive game plan. But
he compartmentalizes for Ben Johnson.
Right, but it's not going to be his game plan.
No, it's not.
All right, well, we have a lot to look forward to with this new coaching staff with the Chicago Bears. And, hey, we have a lot to look forward to when it comes to the baseball season. It's right